Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlawn Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlawn Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Hi, welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm Roxanne Meshar, and I'm your host today. And my guest with us, returning guest, who some of you may have already viewed before, is Claudine Arndt, who is an integrative nutrition coach, and we'll talk about what that is. And she's based at the Aslan Institute in Eagan, so she has been working with people for many years, helping them and guiding them in their nutrition. So welcome back to the show, Claudine. So nice to have you back.
Thank you.
And for viewers that maybe didn't see your previous show, perhaps quickly explain the idea of an integrative nutrition coach and give them an idea of what that might mean.
Absolutely. So yes, I am an integrative nutrition coach, and shorthand for that, or another way to say that, is I'm a health coach. So there are a lot of reasons why somebody might decide to work with a health coach, but in a nutshell, my job is to help people improve their health. So sometimes someone comes to me and they've sort of mapped out a list of goals that they have for their health, and they kind of want a partner, who can help them achieve those goals. More often than not, someone will come to me, they maybe have a new health concern, a diagnosis, or they've just sort of noticed this downward trend with their health. They're not feeling as energetic as they used to be. And so they want someone who can partner with them and provide them with information and guidance and support to get them where they want to go.
Interesting you mentioned that kind of flagging energy. I think sometimes as we age, we kind of assume that aging means less energy, but oftentimes, sometimes the aches and pains we feel or the lowered energy has nothing to do with aging. I know I had a couple experiences where I thought something was arthritis. It wasn't at all. It was bursitis, and it's now gone and cured. And of course, nutrition helps with a lot of those things too. So, so we might just say, oh, we have to live with it or suffer with it, but in fact, it's not a condition of aging, has nothing to do with it. Perhaps you tell a little bit about how you happened to get into this work. So, interesting story, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be brief because I kind of went into it in detail last time. But basically, I grew up as a sick kid. My parents and I had no idea that I was eating foods that just really didn't serve me, foods that I had a sensitivity to. So I was a kid that was always in and out of the doctor's office and missing a ton of school. And it wasn't until a family friend kind of intervened and said, Claudine, there's something you're taking into your body or something that you're doing that's contributing to your poor immunity, and I really encourage you to find out what that is. And it was that moment with that person that sort of caused us to dive deep and take a look at what it was that we were doing and eating in our household that could have been contributing to my poor health. Because I had been on and off antibiotics a lot, and those are devastating to health, as we'll probably get into today.
Yes.
A little bit.
So food not only can maintain our health, but it can restore our health. And oftentimes I see now articles, people talk about food as medicine. In fact, we dismiss it way too quickly as just fast fuel, but it's so much more than that. And we'll talk more about it too as we progress today in our show.
And even Roxanne, what you were saying about energy and the aches and pains
Yes,
that you had been having,
yes.
you know, the first thing that comes to mind for me when someone comes in and they're like, yeah, suddenly I have all these aches and pains and my body just kind of hurts, right away you can zero in and go, hey, there's some sort of inflammation going on here probably, and what are the contributors to inflammation? Yes, it can be stress, it can even be medications that we're on, but food can be a big inflammatory agent if we're eating the foods that don't serve us.
Correct. And I have friends who are dairy intolerant or gluten intolerant, maybe various types of fiber limitations or whatever, but different for different people, but totally influencing how they feel on a day-to-day basis. And so they really have to watch carefully, because we're all individuals and we're all different, what they're bringing in and how much sugar can they really take, how much wheat can they really eat, and all of those things. So
Yes.
it's very interesting. So a food coach then would help guide me to make choices that really ramp up my energy instead of maybe drain it out the bottom or drain it out out of my soul or out of my spirit or whatever. So,
I sure hope so. That's the ultimate goal, you know, to figure out what foods are going to be best and are going to be most energizing and really serve, you know, each person the most.
So
yeah.
So maybe we can dive into that. So one of the foods we wanted to talk about today was probiotics. So maybe explain for people what you mean by probiotics.
Sure.
And I know you brought some samples we can take a look at and we'll talk about them. But yeah, let's just get started.
So I love this topic. So one of my emphases in my practice is digestive health. And we sort of skimmed the surface of that a little bit last time I was here.
Yes.
And I had mentioned one of my favorite quotes comes from Hippocrates, who many people consider to be the father of modern day medicine. And he's quoted as saying, all diseases begin in the gut. Which is a really bold statement, right? But science is telling us more and more that that is really true. So this is where probiotics come into play, because probiotics are one of the key pillars to establishing gut health or digestive health, and therefore to establishing overall optimal health. So the word probiotic really means pro means for, and then biotic means life or you know, related to living things. So just imagine we have trillions of bacteria that live in our intestinal tract and some elsewhere in the body, but mainly in the intestinal tract, like 3 to 5 pounds of bacteria in us in any given time. Isn't that? So here's a nerdy little fact for you that I love sharing. The functional medicine community says that we have 10 times as many bacteria in our body as we have cells.
Oh my.
So they say really we're only 10% human.
It's all these other little bacteria that are living with us, whatever.
Which is kind of a creepy thought, kind of a fun thought. But
but on the other hand, when we take medicines that kill them off, so what happens then to our general health when suddenly half of them go missing or worse, you know, even more? So.
Yeah, so these bacteria make up a really important internal ecosystem, and it really is an ecosystem, you know, a system in which, you know, critters depend upon one another for survival, and we want everybody to live in harmony. And the idea is that if we have 80 to 85% good bacteria, you know, beneficial bacteria, or at least non-invasive bacteria, then we're in good shape. And more you'll hear people refer to this internal ecosystem as the human microbiome. That term was coined a few years ago, and we're
human microbiome. All right.
Human microbiome. Yeah. So when we take like an antibiotic or a medication, that's, you know, I said probiotic means, you know, for life.
So antibiotic kills it off.
Yep, means like anti-life. So the reason we always take an antibiotic is because we have some sort of a bug or something that's really ailing us and we want to kill that bug off. But unfortunately, antibiotics aren't discriminatory, you know, and so they just go in and they are like this little bomb going off in our system that might kill off the harmful guys that we don't want there.
Right.
but they also kill off a lot of the good guys, really causing something called dysbiosis within this ecosystem or this microbiome that's so important.
But there are things we can do to remedy that, so it doesn't have to be the end result of an antibiotic. And you brought some examples here today, and people probably eat a lot of probiotics already, in many cases may not realize it.
Yeah.
So yogurt, I know, is a common, people who eat yogurt, that's a probiotic. So it's got a yogurt culture and made from milk, so and you can make it yourself at home using existing yogurt culture. I don't know how people realize how easy it is when my kids were younger to actually make yogurt, especially when they're going through containers a day of yogurt. It can get expensive, but you can make a mixing bowl at a time using regular milk and 3 tablespoons of plain yogurt. Stir it in, put it in your oven with a little pilot light on or a light on, and let it sit overnight. Voila, the next morning you will have yogurt. It's pretty much that easy. It's not difficult.
Yeah, it's like magic, and you're inoculating yourself with these good bacteria.
Yes.
And that's what you're getting at, that we do have ways to replenish these really important bacteria. So yeah, I'm excited that you brought up yogurt. You know, this is a topic I talk about with pretty much every single one of my clients, and I'll ask them, do you have any probiotic-rich foods in your life? And right away they're usually like, oh, you mean like yogurt, right? And yogurt is a great example, and probably the most common example, and that's fermented dairy. And then we also have another kind of fermented dairy is kefir, or some people say kefir or kefir.
Less well known, but still in your grocery store. You can get it in local groceries, not hard to find.
Not hard to find. I'm glad you said that. No, I mean, sometimes we miss things just because we're not looking for them, but I think even in more conventional grocery stores you can find kefir these days. And I often describe kefir as more of a drinkable yogurt, and it is more tart than yogurt, so it can be an acquired taste.
More like a buttermilk almost, but it isn't buttermilk, but yes, it can be similar in taste to that. I know the French have a name for kefir. They call it yo bois, because bois is to drink and yo for yogurt, so they call yo bois, which is basically kefir.
Cool.
And
I didn't know that.
They have different flavors than we do. You'll find fruit flavors, plain, and so forth in the grocery store. They tend to have flavors like coffee, caramel, unusual flavors that we don't have in the U.S., but they call it yo bois. So the kids drink it in a little container. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it can be an acquired taste, but I love turning people onto kefir if they can. You know, just kind of get used to the taste and start slowly because it is more tart. But it, generally speaking, has about 3 times the probiotics that a yogurt does.
Well, and it tastes like a milkshake. I mean, it has that consistency as if you're drinking a milkshake, which is fun. So
it's really fun to use in smoothies. I mean, that's a great way for people to get it in their body who maybe aren't ready to just drink a glass of tart kefir. You can blend it with some, veggies and some fresh fruit and kind of mask that tartness.
Throw a banana in, throw a little peanut butter in, do something like that.
Yeah. But when it comes to probiotics, this might be a good time to say this. We're not just going for sheer numbers. I mentioned that 80 to 85%, but we're also going for different strains of probiotics. Yes. So that's why I love if someone's doing yogurt and they're doing yogurt consistently, great. That's awesome. But how about if you experiment too with some of the other things that we're going to talk about? Because all of these different strains contribute to that healthy ecosystem. So there's fermented dairy, and then not everybody tolerates dairy very well.
So then what do you do?
Even when it's fermented.
Right.
So there are some things like coconut kefir where they use coconut water as the vehicle for these probiotics. I don't have an example of that here today, but that's becoming more and more common too.
I think soy yogurt, coconut yogurt, can't you get coconut milk yogurt, I should say. You can find that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then beyond that, we have some of our fun fermented veggies. So probably the most well-known fermented veggie is sauerkraut,
yes.
which translates to sour cabbage. And this is really easy to make. And were you saying you just made some?
Yes, I did. I've been doing fermented veggies all summer because you run out of freezer space in Minnesota if you go to the farmer's market after a while. And what else can you do with them? Well, you can ferment them. And just how they're chopped in this jar, and you can serve it up like a relish or a chutney, you could do that with a huge mix. So in with this, you could put yellow beets. There's some carrots in here, but you could put green chopped kale. You could put green beans that are chopped up. You could put pretty much any vegetables you want and mix them up. And I was surprised how easy. You basically pick up the fermented packets. It comes in a box for a pack of 6. And you might want to go in with a neighbor and buy a box, and you each take 3, because once you have some, you can save the juice and reuse it for another batch, maybe 1 or 2 batches. But anyway, you dump it in 4 cups of water, a little bit of sugar, and you stir it, or honey I used, and you let it stir and dissolve. And then you chop your vegetables, you stuff them into the jar, just a canning jar that's clean from the dishwasher, has been well scrubbed. There's no boiling, you don't have to seal, you don't have to do any of those things. When you're done, you take the 4 cups into a pourable Pyrex measuring jar, and pour it into your jars evenly so they all have the same amount. You can put in some clear filtered water to fill them up to the top. And then you can take a little piece of cabbage to lay it on top of each one, push down and make sure that the liquid comes to the very top. You put the lids on loosely. I put them in a cookie sheet, so I had 9 jars at a time. And because they'll start to ferment, and the next day they're kind of bubbling. It's very interesting. And you open the jars a little, and there's more liquid there than the day before, and you can spoon a little bit out if there's too much, and then loosely put the jars back on. Sometimes the 3rd day they'll bubble over a little bit, which is what the cookie sheet is for. Anyway, after the 3rd day, taste it and see if you like the spiciness of it. If you like more, you can leave it a couple more days. If it's spicy enough for you, or it has a little bit of tartness and you like that, seal them tight and just tighten up the lid and put them in the refrigerator. That's it. It's that easy. I mean, you just watch them on the counter and pour the liquid in. That's it. It's so easy to do. And you can use cauliflower, broccoli, and mix those vegetables all together, that they don't have to be in separate jars, and chop them up. It's so easy.
It's so easy. It's a lot easier than a lot of people think. It can be really intimidating. And in fact, your process sounds totally different from the process I've done in the past, which is just layering cabbage and salt and pounding it with my fists and letting it sit in this crock for a couple of weeks.
And that works too.
And that works too. But there are great books out, you know, even going online. I mean, you can get really clear instructions for how to make these fermented veggies. Yes.
If you've had Korean kimchi, for example, in your grocery store,
favorite.
It's very good. It is spicy, so for people who can't handle spice, probably not a good option. but again, that's a fermented cabbage, and they're making it the way you described. They're putting salt and cabbage and pounding and peppers and letting it ferment. It's delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah, and then for those people who don't want to prepare that at home, or just run out of time, or maybe you did and you ran out of your sauerkraut because you love it so much, you know, it's fun. It's catching on. You know, people are really catching on that these foods have been an important part of humans' diets for a long time. Originally, people did this to preserve their food.
Right.
And then it had the side benefit of all these really important bacteria for that microbiome. So now we have great brands like Angelica's Garden at the front there. And she's got some great flavors. She's very reputable. But Cortito is a fun one that's kind of spicy again, and that's the red cabbage and ginger.
Which looks
Isn't that
pretty
beautiful?
So red cabbage and ginger. How interesting is that?
And so it's got a fun little zing to it because of the ginger, you know.
Very nice.
So, you know, that's food. And I also just want to say to people, because again, it is kind of an acquired taste, that sometimes people think that they need a whole side dish of sauerkraut, you know, and so they don't even get started because they're so hesitant of having to eat so much of it. But just imagine, you know, in a tablespoon of that food are about 1 billion microorganisms.
Yes.
Billion with a B.
Yes, so it can be like a relish, it can be like a chutney. We like to just top it on a little bit. If you have a taco, put a little bit on top. If you have a fajita, put a little bit on top. If you're using a burrito, add a little bit to it. That's really all you need. It's a seasoning. Add it as a seasoning. You don't have to sit down and eat a bowl. You just add a spoonful on whatever you're eating. If you're doing some vegetables in the wok, you can add a little bit to that. So it's just that easy.
Yeah. Although my one cautionary word to people too is just remember that there are live organisms in there, and so you can warm them really gently,
But not really high heat.
but don't like boil them. Don't really cook them because you don't want to kill off those good guys.
Exactly, or add them after you're done cooking. That's
Or
true.
add them after
at the end.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have another jar here that we didn't talk about.
Yes. So we can get probiotics in our body both through food and through supplementation. So I usually recommend that people do a combination of both, and ultimately getting to the point where they're having a little probiotic-rich food every day. And if you're just kind of starting on this journey, I do recommend also supplementing with a probiotic because there are so many things that destroy those good bacteria. You had mentioned antibiotics before. Even chlorine in our water. Chlorine in our water, antibacterial soaps and cleaners, sugar, all of those things are hard on that ecosystem. So for simplicity's sake today, a great way to choose a probiotic supplement is to go to your health food store and go to the refrigerated section in the health and wellness section and grab one of those probiotic supplements out of that refrigerator.
Okay.
You know, there are some that are shelf stable, but you have to be kind of fussy and know which ones to choose. So I always just tell people go for the refrigerated ones. And then sticking with that theme of diversity, once you finish that bottle, that probiotic, go ahead and go back and get a different bottle. Don't always get the same one because we want as many different strains as possible.
Very interesting. So get a different brand, get a different kind, try taste all the flavors or all the brands. Try more than one. Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Some people notice that they tried one brand and they didn't really notice that much of a difference. Not that we always do, but then they tried another one and their digestion changed, or all of a sudden they noticed a really nice boost to their energy. We don't think of probiotics as like giving us energy, but they directly feed the cells in our digestive tract. So yes, a byproduct can be more energy.
So huge difference. So just like an antibiotic is a medicine that can kill off strains of bioorganisms. Again, food as medicine. Probiotics can enhance organisms in our system. So they truly are medicine. They truly can increase our well-being, increase our energy, increase our resiliency to diseases, especially with flu season coming up too.
Undoubtedly.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, undoubtedly. 70 to 80% of our immune system is in and around our digestive system, and a huge part of that are these bacteria.
Wow, wow. One thing I wanted to get to too, before we get too far into the show, is we were talking briefly before about what about tips for people who don't have time to maybe make their own fermented vegetables or cook their own healthy meals. I'm working, I have 3 kids, I'm maybe working 2 jobs. What can I do? What are some tips? What are some ideas for people who maybe have a lot less time and maybe don't have the training, don't know exactly what to do? So we thought it'd be interesting to take a look at that.
So that's a great question. I can totally commiserate with that. The number one reason people say that they don't do home cooking, prepare their own food, is lack of time. I feel like we're all trying to cram so much in this precious life of ours that we almost feel like we can't take the time to cook. And that being said, I feel like home cooking is probably the number one thing that we can do for our health. Because it's only when we're cooking our own food that we really know exactly what went into that food.
Correct.
Otherwise there can be all sorts of mystery ingredients. So I have about 5 tips I was thinking I could share. The first one is just, everyone's heard it before and it's kind of boring, but plan. Just really plan, like schedule it into your calendar, just like you would schedule anything else that's important to you. I know people who spend more time deciding what they're going to wear than what they're going to eat for the week, right? So just make that commitment to yourself and hold true to it. So the way it looks in my household is that I separate my shopping time from my cooking time. Grocery shopping usually happens like on a Friday night or Saturday at some point during the day. Friday night's great because no one's at the grocery store.
You can get in, you can get out.
You can get in and out in 20 minutes, no joke. And then that leads into tip number 2. I cook on Sundays, and I do something called batch cooking. And this is something I recommend to all my clients. It sounds dramatic to say, but it is such a game changer. I mean, it will change people's lives. So I set aside like 3 hours because I'm pretty skilled at it now. I can get into a rhythm and just go for it. And I prepare like 3 or 4 main dishes for the week that my hubby and I are just going to eat off of. So all we have to do during the week is go into the fridge and grab our little to-go container,
It's ready to
of
go.
healthful food.
We had a mini version of that this week. We cooked a pot roast for friends, which simmered for 3 hours in the oven, which we were home anyway doing other things. So you load all the vegetables in and put it in there and served it up for the 4 of us. But then there's this huge amount of meat left over and the huge amount of vegetables, which I cooked on purpose. So then we sent leftovers home with our friends, but we also had a lot more vegetables and meat. So the second day I made beef barley soup, a huge pot, like probably 12 servings, which we had that night and we had last night because we were in a hurry on our way to another event, so we had to eat quickly. And now the rest of it goes into the freezer, and then some night again when I'm shorthanded, you have maybe French bread, you pull out the soup, it heats up quickly, you're ready to go, and I know everything that went in there, and I know it's good, and that pot roast went a long way. So there's an example of a batch cooking chicken. It can work the same way with that. Big salads, lots of different vegetables that you can put in the refrigerator for the week and throw it into soups, throw it into eggs, throw it in sandwiches or burritos, throw it in as a salad, as a separate item, but a big bin of it ready to go.
It just makes it your week so effortless. You know, it's so nice not having to think about your food all the time because you just set aside this designated time and you took care of it.
It's really nice. I know my husband loves to do the Israeli salad, which has no lettuce in it, which is why it lasts so long. So it has Napa cabbage, it has kale, and there's a little tiny dish at the bottom upside down, a little saucer, or sometimes a grate that allows any liquid from tomatoes or cucumbers to fall through underneath the vegetables. And so it takes a lot of time to chop all that up, green peppers and onions and cabbages and beets and all of that. But once you have a big, huge bin of it in there, you can use it all week long. So it's really nice. We have just a couple minutes left.
My goodness.
But I wanted a chance for people to be able to connect with you. So if people wanted to email you, I know we showed it earlier in the show, but just to remind them, what would be the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, so a couple places. My website is wellnesswithclaudine.com, and then my email is simply claudine@wellnesswithclaudine.com. And then I'm sure trying to build a Facebook presence, and I've been posting more and more fun stuff, you know, like what I'm cooking for dinner, etc., on my Facebook page, which is also Wellness with Claudine.
Okay, so Facebook too, Wellness with Claudine. Go there, see what she's doing, see what's happening, and click like her Facebook page and learn more about what you can do to upgrade your life. And we talked a little bit about that last time, and it was fun. Upgrade your diet essentially does upgrade your life. It makes a huge difference, and I had a little experience with that, but that's maybe a story for another time. But I'm so glad you had a chance to come by and be on the show, and I hope people get a chance to try probiotics and to connect with you and learn more about how they can really feel good and have their energy increase and feel well every single day, regardless of what's going on. So very nice. So
well, thank you for having me back.
Oh, our pleasure. So thank you for being with us today and for doing this work, making people feel better. Thank you for joining us. Keep these examples in mind of probiotics and things that you can do. Wellness with Claudine. Go to her Facebook page, learn a little more, and upgrade your life. Thanks for joining us today. Bye now.